Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Microsoft 365 Business Boost Show. I am one half of your host. I go by the name Thurman Trotman. I'm with my guy, Nick DeCourcy here. Nick, what's going on?
Not much. I go by the name Nick DeCourcy.
All right, good deal. Nick, on this show, we like to talk about topics that will help folks boost their business, hence Business Boost Show. And then we also, stick to Microsoft 365 topics. Hence, Microsoft 365 Business Boost Show, right? I was perusing on LinkedIn a few days ago and saw a article, someone or a post someone published about, the governance of Microsoft Copilot agents. And what was interesting was that the solution that the person provided was a non-Microsoft solution. So that was interesting. But I'm not here to talk about the non-Microsoft solution. I want to talk about the meat of what this person was saying, which was about governing these agents. Like, what does this look like now that, this is slowly moving into the workforce? And I think there's where my brain goes is thinking about people in leadership. And I'm talking about like once you get out of just, the regular employee, we're talking about managers, maybe middle managers, senior leaders, all of these folks. Maybe not so much senior leaders. Excuse me, but maybe, who knows? But we're talking about people going up the food chain. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but in the past, people have said that you're not supposed to be managing people, even though you literally have people to manage as a manager. They say what you should do is manage processes. So I remember hearing that a long time ago, and I thought, but wait, you have people. How do you just manage the processes and not manage the people? And I think maybe they meant something like if somebody comes in late, then, you're not on their heels about why you're late. I don't care what you got going on in your family. Make sure you dock yourself an hour because you came an hour late or whatever. I think that they were saying you don't do that, but you instead focus on the process and you do something else with that person. Maybe you don't manage them. Maybe you communicate with them. I don't know. I've never been in management. I don't know how to speak to this clearly, but let's say that in the future, you don't have this. You don't have somebody that manages, a secure process that this person might be coming in late, or this person has family issues, or like I like to mention, this person is taking smoke breaks. You don't have any of that. Instead, you have an agent that might be doing it. Maybe the agent might be working alongside this person, but let's say that you just have the agent doing it. What does governance and or management look like for agents? Because these agents are going to be, like the post mentioned, touching secure processes, touching secure assets, maybe calling APIs, sending emails possibly. Like, what does the governance and or management of those agents look like in the future? Like, will I have in the past, I had a team of 5 humans, but in the future, I have a team of 3 humans with 5 agents. And now I have to govern, policy has to be written to govern that. And I also have to manage these agents and people. Like, what is this? What does this look like? What are things that we have to consider for the future of management of these agents?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you, Nick.
Or
Nick,
should I refer it to my agent?
I'm talking to Nick, who goes by Nick DeCourcy.
Okay. I think the first thing is that we need to set a line of distinction between this idea of management and this idea of governance, right? So if you look at what we have going on in organizations without AI agents, right? You have people who are involved in processes, and those processes touch things, right? In terms of whether it be data or so on and so forth. So we already have those things going on, and on the people side of things, we have management of those people to get the processes done, and then we have governance of those processes that kind of define how the people are going to touch them and what abilities they're going to have, for want of a better term, as they kind of navigate through those processes, which may be about like where can you use these apps, for example. What type of device are you going to use? Where is that data going to live? Who can you share that data with? And so on and so forth. And those two things have to go together, and there has to be an awareness of those governance practices by the people who are involved in those processes, and then an aspect of management. It won't be the whole thing, but an aspect of management will be making sure that the way those processes are being done is compliant with the standards that have been set. So managing the human aspect of making sure that governance strategy and those governance processes actually happen. So the thing that kind of confuses that in what you've outlined, Thurman, is where you throw in agents. Where do they sit in that conversation, right? If you think about the fact that we have all these different elements, and do agents kind of sit on just the governance side, where you're thinking about like what do those processes look like, what do those processes touch, and so on and so forth, or do they sit more in the kind of human? We have a person being managed that's interfacing with these things, and that's going to be part of their management. Right. And I think the answer is that it's evolving, right? I know Microsoft Work Lab just put out some research about this, of people becoming an agent boss. I don't really like the term agent boss, but that's what it's being referred to as.
What is it? Agent what?
Agent boss.
Oh,
so like the boss of agents.
I don't know with that.
Agent boss is what we've come up with here. So the idea is that you might end up having this kind of team, which is humans plus agents working together, as opposed to agents working directly for a human, and you have your group of agents, that you have agents and humans working together, and maybe you even have agents working for agents, in the same way that we now have humans working for humans, and those kinds of relationships. And it does create this kind of this problem in that the way that humans are going to do work and the skills that humans have to do that work are radically different to the skills that agents have to do their work, right? You can't just take a human and like find somewhere to plug them into an Ethernet port and give them direct access to your database or to an API or so on and so forth. But with agents, we can effectively do that. So you don't have the same kind of interface points that you do for humans, where they are on a specific device or in a specific place and working at a specific time, for example. And some of those things are positives, and some of those things are negatives. Like the idea of having an agent that's working for you 24/7. That's fantastic. But how do you provide human oversight to that agent that's working 24/7? If you have a management team or a supervisory team that's only working 40 hours a week, 8 till 5, Monday to Friday. So some of those things that you could put on the side of this is a positive for an agent actually become a problem, or something that you need to work out a solution to when you mix this combination of we're going to have humans and agents working together. So what's the answer to all of that? Well, I don't think anyone entirely knows at this point, because I don't think we have a model where this aspirational idea of humans will be working seamlessly with AI agents actually exists at scale yet. Like, we have agents, and agents can be effective, but you can see the limitations that we've got. You couldn't hire an agent. Should AI agents have personas? There was that whole debacle with an HR company. I forget the name of the HR company now. We'll have to put it in the notes below, last year, where they came out and wanted HR management for AI personas, and it was a whole debacle there. I think we talked about it at the time. Microsoft has done much the same thing because they now have pushed forward this idea of Entra ID personas for agents, which on the face of it makes a lot of sense because of these kinds of access issues. But the question is, how's it actually going to work? How are they going to report? Basic things like when agents were first shown off as autonomous, and I think that was at the end of last year, there was an interface point for an autonomous agent to be able to ask for human input in the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat app. And that has not appeared yet. We don't have that technical capability within what we can build in Copilot Studio right now. So there are lots of pieces of this puzzle that are a little bit of an unknown. And so you're not the only person who would have questions about this.
Well, Nick, I'll tell you, here's how. Okay, so as you know, I like to always make these analogies so I could not only for myself, but have other people kind of understand where I might be coming from or what to think about, right? And here's what I think about when I think about this situation. So have you been in your local supermarket recently and seen that machine going up and down the aisles cleaning?
No.
Have you seen that by itself?
No, I don't regularly go to supermarkets. I generally get the groceries delivered.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't know you were one of those guys. Okay.
Yeah, I don't leave my attic, Thurman.
Now look. Let's say you do get your groceries delivered. Someone has to take that order. I've seen them do it. They have to take the order, and like someone gives them the order, and then they put these either they put the bags inside of the carts, or they put these containers inside of another type of cart, and they walk around the store. They might be fulfilling multiple orders. That's why they have these big containers. But they go up and down the aisles, they put everything inside of these containers, and then I don't know what happens after that. They probably bag it up, and then you pull up and get it put inside of your car, or they bag it up and deliver it to you. I'm not really sure. But inside of the store, they're walking through the aisles and putting these things together. Now, is there a machine that would have some artificial intelligence in it that could do this job? So we can call this a bot or a robot or maybe an agent, probably not an agent. But today's world, you walk them down the aisles and you put the orders together. Tomorrow's world, you send the agent out throughout the bot out throughout the aisles to do it for you. Does that bot need management? Does it work alongside a human to make sure that it's getting the right food? And that's like the first layer. It learns how to get the right food. But management might say, okay, now I see it's getting the right food, but it looks like when you go through produce, you're not picking fresh produce. You're kind of like just picking anything. So now I have to train you on how to tell the difference between good produce and bad produce. Basically, teaching you what I do. Now, there's going to come a point where you've taught it how to get good produce. You've taught it how to go up and down the aisles efficiently, or maybe it taught you. You've taught it how to, do what it's supposed to do really well, what you used to do, but now it's doing it without smoke breaks. It's doing it, to your point, maybe 24/7, and every 8-hour shift, someone else is managing it. Whatever the point is, it now is working on its own to do that job. What is your role as a manager? Maybe you have to do services on it. So, like how you have a vehicle, you have to perform monthly maintenance or quarterly maintenance if you have a bunch of vehicles that are in your fleet, and you have to take care of these things. You have to take care of the insurance paperwork. You have to take care of the internet, the security of this thing being connected to the company, to the store's internet. You have to keep it clean because it's a physical thing, and you don't want a thing rolling up and down being dirty. Your role turns into or can graduate into something that's not necessarily the expert at getting the food and knowing how to go up and down the aisles and pick the right food, but taking care of the thing that does it. So in Microsoft, your agent is doing the stuff. You have to now worry about compliance. You have to worry about, is it doing a good job? So you have to do a review every whatever few months. That's probably where the role of management comes in, is that now you do manage the process. Back to my original point. You don't manage a person. You manage, or maybe you do, you still manage people, but dispersed throughout those people, you have people who also have their own bots, and you manage them and the bot. So I think you're right. We don't know the answer yet, but we can speculate based off of things like that we've been seeing. You know what I mean? Like, out there, California, they just had their first, or was it Texas? They just had their first autonomous food delivery.
I was going to say the robo-taxi thing.
Robo-taxi is California. Food delivery is Texas, I believe.
Okay.
So, yeah, both of these things are, someone's going to have to care for the car. Someone's going to have to make sure that the car is secure. It's compliant. It's all these things. So maybe a job turns into something like that. I don't know.
I think it's interesting. Like the examples that you're highlighting sit within the service industry, right? So when we're thinking about like grocery pickup or food delivery or taxis and so on and so forth, we're thinking about service provision. Where there is a physical action that has to be taken, or there is a physical product that needs to turn up in order to satisfy the demand. Whereas when we're thinking about agents, and we're thinking about agents specifically within the Microsoft stack, we're thinking about processes and jobs that are more information creation, information worker kind of things, where you might have a service that is taking place, but there isn't necessarily a physical aspect of, we need to get a product here, or we need to get a thing here, and so on and so forth. And I do think there's a difference between those things in terms of, number one, how they scale, and number two, how they're managed already. Like traditionally, the mechanisms that we've used to manage things like food delivery, for example, in terms of metrics as to has this been successful or has it not been successful, are quite different than we might see with a sales role in a company. Like how long is a transaction in terms of getting us from someone being a prospect to closing a deal? There's different steps that you can take at different times to get that done. There's different ways that you would communicate with someone, or when you would do an in-person product demo versus sending them a video of your product, or inviting them to an event so they can see your product in action, for example. Whereas with a food delivery, it's a bit more straightforward. Like, you've ordered some food and it has to turn up at the time that it's supposed to turn up. There's a lot less ambiguity about it. And I think the issue is this issue of ambiguity. On the management side, you've got the ambiguity, right? You've got is the actual activity happening in the way that we want it to happen? And how would we know, if you've got an agent that's like doing that seller role, how would you know if you took that out of the human's hand and gave that to an agent? And on the other side of that piece, you've got the governance aspect. If you think about your supermarket robot that you're talking about, like, are they picking up too many bananas? Have they put in a gallon of milk versus half a gallon of milk? Like, you could imagine that there could be some risk there from that point of view. But there's never a risk that bot is going to pick up everything that's in that supermarket and deliver it to someone's house inadvertently. Whereas there is a risk that your AI agent, if you give it the wrong access to your resources, could pick up your entire customer list and inadvertently send it to the wrong person. So the governance aspects of it are different as well. So if you think about it, like where we're moving into from this kind of robotic, almost like we're just automating the steps that humans already take, to we're moving into this autonomous world of we're allowing machines to not only take those steps, but make decisions about which steps they're going to take when. That's why this is more complicated and perhaps more troubling, and we need to wrap more understanding of governance around it. Because you have to go for your best case scenario, but your governance strategy also needs to follow your worst case scenario as well. And for your supermarket bot, your worst case scenario isn't actually that bad. Whereas for your agent that's connected to all your customer data, your worst case scenario is actually quite bad.
Yeah, you're right. It does lend more to why that manager or managers or leaders, their job will evolve. It's like inevitable. Your job is going to evolve, and you will become more involved with processes that maybe you weren't involved with before. So, okay. So there was a time when this is a guess actually, so I don't know. All of us touch finances because as you work the job, you have to get paid. When you get paid, you get a pay stub. Your stub explains what's going on. There might have been a time when you didn't have options of your insurance. I don't know. I have no idea. And the company would just provide it. Where now you would run into a lot of companies where you could see I have options and there's decisions that I have to make. Or if you're independent and you get your own insurance, you go do the research and you have to find out how much it's going to cost. What am I going to pay? What are each of these things offering? It puts you in the world of something that you're not even, it's not really your world. So there's a set of folks out there, their industry is like healthcare and insurance, and they understand this stuff. Where when you get it put in your lap, you now have to, for a moment or every 6 months or whatever it is, decide through a bunch of things that you don't really know that much about. You know what I mean? I don't know how good the insurance is or whatever. AI and the future and these agents are going to do that. They're going to place people in industries they didn't really want to necessarily be in. And when I say industries, I'm really talking about technology, which we kind of already did that already, right? Before social media, a lot of folks who would proclaim that they're not technically anything learned how to use things like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all these things to get to the end goal. I have a message I need to share, so how do I do this? So you've placed everyone in the world of technology. Right now, your grandmother knows how to have a conversation with someone, with their grandkid, halfway across the earth through a video screen. I just open it up, put in my code, press this button, and then wait, and then I'll get connected and we can speak face to face. Like, you have commoditize the technology to the point where she can use it that way. A lot of people, management, leadership, they're going to be thrown into a industry, and again, I'm talking about technology, that they don't necessarily feel comfortable with. So they're going to have to, something's going to have to give, because this is where we're going.
Maybe.
You think it's a maybe? I think it's a definite.
I mean, I think that there's different ways of looking at this. Like, what is the end result? You know, like, I do most of my work remotely, right? So most of my interaction with clients, with contractors I'm working with, is via a Teams call. There's absolutely no reason why my agents can't eventually join my Teams call. There's absolutely no reason why there couldn't be a physical persona that is attached to an agent, and you have an agent that's sitting there chatting with you. And they're not a human. I mean, but they can sit there and they can chat with you in real. I mean, open up ChatGPT and turn on voice mode. You can have a chat with this technology today. What's the difference in doing that with an agent? So I think that actually what you're describing is perhaps a transitionary state where right now the technology as it exists, doesn't allow us to manage it in the way that we manage human workers, right? So you can't slot this idea of you have an agent as a member of a team. Sounds really weird because you can't contextualize it in the same way that you contextualize a human being part of a team. And the reason that we have to be very concerned about governance, those kind of strict walls that we put around these tools, and perhaps think about that differently to the way that we think about humans right now, is we're not able to have a relationship with the AI tools in the way that we do with the humans. We're not able to train them in the same way. We're not able to judge their work in the same way. We don't have that ability. So because it's a little bit of a kind of black box where we're not sure what's going on in there, there's a lot of concern. And I mean, it's right concern. I'm not saying it's wrong to be concerned about those things, but there is concern that's specific to these AI agents that you don't necessarily have about human workers right now. So imagine a situation in 5 years' time where you have a team of agents that are working with you, and you just say, hey, I need a call to understand and get an update from my sales agent. And to do that, you just schedule a Teams call with that sales agent, and that sales agent comes into Teams, appears on video, and speaks to you and gives you an update.
Yeah.
And we've built guardrails into that technology to know that what they're telling you is authentic, for you to be able to trust that what they're saying is true, for you to be able to open the documents that they're referencing or go into the tables that they're talking about in your CRM in exactly the same way as you do with humans today. And at that point, this idea of there's a difference, well, maybe there isn't such a difference in terms of how you go about it, and the difference that we have to look at is, well, what's the impact of that on society, as opposed to what's the impact of that on managing people or managing workers within our business.
Yeah, man. Nick, I don't I don't subscribe fully to AI won't replace you. It'll just help you. How can we go through these discussions and say the things that we're saying and not think people are going to be replaced by AI? If you could describe what you just described just now on that call, that job that maybe someone enjoyed doing, being the sales expert and getting called on to give the briefings and the updates and all that because they're good at sales, that that in that scenario you described can go away, to where the salesperson now, to my point, they're going to be thrust into a technology industry, and they would be the ones obviously providing the management, if you will, of that bot that joined the call with you. So I got to give it the right information. I got to maybe do some audits on the calls to make sure that those calls are going correct. To your point, I'm the one who's responsible to make sure that you can access the documents that the bot told you could access. I am the one who has to make sure that the information is accurate. Maybe I even have to tell the bot, don't repeat what you heard here to somebody else.
Maybe you have to fire the agent. I mean, it's entirely possible that you would have to fire the agent because the agent that you've hired is not a good fit for what you need. And so you say, goodbye, I'm going to fire up a different template from Copilot Studio. And I don't think that you're a good fit. Sorry, this didn't work out. I'm sure there's another company that will really enjoy your services.
Now I'm worried.
I don't know. I mean, I think that the thing is, like,
I'm worried about retaliation.
There are a lot, like the human population has grown massively over time, right? And we've not run out of things for people to do on the basis of there being too many people. So at a basic level, does adding a whole bunch of agents mean that we run out of things to do? Probably not.
Probably not.
The question is, where do they fit into the economy?
Right.
And how do you offset the fact that people are making a lot of money out of what previously was human labor. Right. But I think that's a topic that goes beyond the one that you introduced here, and is something that would be valuable to talk about. But it is a topic that goes beyond the one that you've introduced here. I mean, at a basic level, I think this idea of I'm troubled by the concept of how do I manage an agent. I do think that it's a transitionary state as this technology evolves, but it's evolving very quickly. So,
Yes.
Microsoft 365 Copilot with voice mode, potentially attached to an agent or a set of agents in the future. Are you 50, 60, 70% of the way to having a realistic relationship with an agent that's working on your behalf day in and day out? Maybe. And that's going to completely change this discussion from the idea of dealing with an agent is about learning how to use Copilot Studio and understanding the technology to you're just chatting with something that's helpful to you.
Right. Yeah. Way back, if you remember that situation that I gave you where my friend's son, I was telling him how school is going to be different for him. So like he could walk into a room, whatever time he felt like on a Tuesday morning, he walks into a room. There's a device that sits on a table. He presses the button on that device. A hologram of a teacher that he created in his image pops up. And then this teacher begins lessons. This teacher has endless amounts of patience. This teacher doesn't take any smoke breaks. This teacher looks like what the kid wanted it to look like. So the kid said, I want the teacher to be a unicorn with a cape and a bunch of muscles. That's what you got. You got this unicorn, this muscular unicorn with a cape talking about history. And when the kid goes, wait, I didn't understand that. Can you explain it differently? This endless amount of patience coming from this bot that's educated can then give the kid the education. That technology being used to be the teacher will need management and will need governance. So before, if you were a teacher, you could probably handle the management side. You're moving to management. But someone else or some company or something might need to handle the governance side. But that's where, yeah, exactly. And that's where I see why I keep saying like everyone's going to be thrown into this technology world. A teacher who may not be all into the technology and care about that will have to, because they're going to have to be part of the process of teaching this kid and all these other kids with this new way of being taught. One of the new ways, anyway, is through these bots.
The teacher will probably have an agent. I mean, some of this will be hard guardrails, and some of it will be flexible. You know, like the thing of you want your learning assistant to look the way that you want it to look. Okay, that's great until you get a room full of 14-year-old boys who decide what they want their teacher to look like. You know, so like there has to be guardrails there. You know, so I mean, it's really important that you've got both sides of that coin. Of you've got the flexibility, but you've also got the rule set that stops something from going horribly wrong. And it's the technical people that need to think about how do we implement that rule set. But it's also the experts, you know, it's the teachers, it's the people who are expert in developing learning approaches that will have to be involved in that. And I think it's going to be a real whichever industry you're in, whether it's to do with delivering groceries or it's to do with running schools or it's to do with the type of stuff that we do, it's going to have to be a real team effort to get this right. And I think that is the thing that's going to consume people's work. You know, it's not necessarily all going to be technical work, but there's going to be lots of stuff for all of us to do as we work on getting this right.
Yeah. I'm with you. I like the team aspect, kind of like a triangle where you got the expert, the user, and the agent, or maybe the expert, the not the user, but the user takes advantage of the triangle, which is the expert, the technology support, and then the agent. And the user gets to take advantage of that. So that team could grow. That team's dynamics could shift. But yeah, you're right. It's a team effort that we're looking at. That helps. That actually gets me clear. Where it's like, so maybe roles will be replaced, not necessarily people. Roles will be replaced, but roles will be created. And, we can see, I can see a bit more clear where pick a role. Here's how an agent can do the role. Here's how the expert can graduate to teach the agent. And here's how we bring in IT to govern what this looks like. And maybe this role can grow. So yeah,
exactly. And I think it's very relevant to everyone.
I like
my first job was in a high school. And I've never met a teacher that wouldn't want more help. There's always something that can be done to enhance the quality of planning or the quality of delivery or whatever it may be. I've done a bunch of my career has been spent in non-profits, and never was there a time where it's like we have enough resources to get everything done that we would want to get done. Like this isn't the preserve just of big tech companies. Like I can see the relevance of this to any organization that I've worked in or I've worked with. It's just a matter of making sure that it's done right so that it amplifies the things that are of value about people, as opposed to pushing down those things and replacing them. I think that's the key thing that we need to consider, and that's something that companies like Microsoft who are building these tools need to consider, but it's what every organization that's deploying these tools needs to think about as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, listen, one last thing before we go, because you just mentioned nonprofits, and my brain started racing. Let's say in this nonprofit, you are tackling something in public health like diabetes. You need to, maybe you do canvassing and you are knocking on doors, or maybe you find out, you know who's at risk and you know where these people live. So maybe you're knocking on doors, maybe you're making phone calls. The goal is to get them enrolled in a program so that you can get them away from being at risk of diabetes. That's what you do. Canvassing, physically walking streets and knocking on doors, maybe you continue to do that. We're probably a long way off before we have some bot or something do that for you and people answering doors to robots. So you get the information. As you get this information, you give this information to your agent. Everything that you give it to your agent. Where before you would probably have somebody fill out a form, they fill the form out, you put it inside of a database, you use that database to do further analysis, that type of stuff. Maybe you're collecting this information and it's not necessarily in a form, or maybe it is, whatever, but it's in a database. Your agent has access to this database. Your agent now knows this information, and now you can interact with your agent to say, all right, listen, how did we do over the last 3 months? What trends are you seeing? What neighborhoods are we missing? What do you think is a good follow-up sequence? Like, all of those things will help you do your job better. And it's not like if you have 10 folks inside of that program trying to help people that we're going to be replacing these folks. Not only do you have 10 folks there, but you might have now 10 agents, one per person, trained to help them make sense of their data. You know what I'm saying? As they go out into these neighborhoods and canvas. So maybe all 10 of the agents, you needed them in one neighborhood before, where now you just need two people in one neighborhood. And now you can spread your people out better and collect more information and attack that better. Oh my God, my mind is being blown right now.
If you're in that situation, today, say you're that non-profit, right? And you're trying to understand your data better. Today, you go and you export the data that you want to think about. You open up the analyst agent in Microsoft 365 Copilot. You give it your data and you start asking those questions. And you're going to be 60, 70% of the way to what you're talking about there. It's not going to be that directly personalized experience, but we do have those capabilities. So the quicker you get started with that, understanding what you need, understanding what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be customized for you, what you can just take off the shelf with the technology that's arriving, you can get value out of this today. Just go buy a Microsoft 365 Copilot license and start playing with it,
Right, there you go. Nick, good stuff. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Listen, before we do take off, I'd like to ask you, like I always ask you, what do you got on deck and where can people find you?
Well, on LinkedIn, I go by Nick DeCourcy.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Nick, who goes by Nick DeCourcy.
So if you go and you look for Nick DeCourcy on LinkedIn, I mean, there might be other Nick DeCourses. If there are, they are not me. So look out for me, and I post there fairly regularly. How about you, Thurman? Where can people find you?
Absolutely, same thing. Nick, LinkedIn. So go on LinkedIn, make sure you find me there, and I will always be talking about SharePoint. And to Nick's point, actually, if you are looking for somewhere to have clean data that you would export and give to an analyst agent, SharePoint is an excellent place to collect that data. You could do it through a SharePoint form, or you could start with Microsoft Forms, and then maybe one day you'll graduate and get into SharePoint Forms. But the point is, Microsoft has tools for you to do these things today to get your data clean and use that data to make better decisions. So if you want to know more about SharePoint, please just follow me on LinkedIn. Just look up Thurman Trotman, and you'll be good to go. So Nick, who goes by Nick DeCourcy, this was a very good episode. A lot to think about. I hope, especially our nonprofits and people who are still living on that edge of they're afraid of the future. Hopefully, as I did, and my eyes are a little bit more opened up to how things can be in the future. You know what I mean? That there's a bright side to look on. So hopefully that was helpful for you. So Nick, once again, it's been great.
See you next time.
All right. Good.